Hi everyone, Morgan here. So we're going to talk about small space prepping. This question gets asked a lot, but the very first tips that I have is going to be about growing. This is probably one of the most pain points of people living in an RV, apartment, any type of small space like that. Growing is not as difficult as you may think. You have a wall, right? I suggest you utilize your walls. First of all, by growing microgreens, growing sprouts, that can be done on your counter, in front of a window, these kinds of things. The next is going to be growing vertically on that wall, okay? Growing vertically, you can get, a shelf, you can just staple some things, they have vertical grow bags. You can do whatever you need to do in order to grow vertically. I have a video coming up after this that's going to be talking about growing indoors. So I'm going to be giving you my best tips for that, whether you live in a cold climate, a small apartment, or whatever. Now, grow vertically. You can, if you have a super bright window, you may not need grow lights, but you could get a couple of grow lights to grow vertically, but you can grow so much just in your tiny little space, okay? But speaking of getting, shelves, using your walls, now usually in apartments you can't put permanent shelving, right? But you can get wire shelves, put them against all your walls, and that's how you can, one, store food, water, gear, all of your other preps. You can also use that for gardening. Put a little grow light underneath. I have a little video here of what I'm doing, what I have done. I've grown on these a lot. I store basically all my gear on these wire shelves, whether these shelves or wooden shelves, whatever, I don't care. Shelves, 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 okay? Something else that you can get creative with your space is going to be using totes. Use a tote as like a coffee table. Use a tote as a side table. Listen, we've been in Alaska here about 4 or 5 months, something like that. And, we still have not gotten legit side tables, okay? I'm not gonna lie about this. I'm showing you a video of what I have right now as my side table. And you know what you could put in here? Stuff. Right? You could put books, water, food, gear. You can put lots of stuff in this. And I've just made a side table. Speaking of side tables, under your bed is a fantastic place to store things. So speaking of water though, water is heavy, right? And then usually in apartments, especially if you're like on a higher floor, it can be difficult to store that really heavy water, like a lot of it. But I do recommend storing at least a few cases of bottled water, a few gallons of bottled water here and there. You can also freeze water. You can also just put water bottles back in the fridge and then you can have it like that, continually rotate, right? But yeah, freeze water too. Use up that freezer space if you're not already, okay? I've seen people in apartments have freezers out on their balconies if you have that. That works, right? So yeah, utilize your space like that. You could also get totes and put them out on your balcony and then put bottles of water in those totes so that people don't know what's in there, right? And rotate them often because they are going to be outdoors in the, various weather. If it does freeze, you're going to have to do the same thing as with frozen water, of course, is to, de-thaw it, right? Before you can use it. Now, the next thing is going to be snow. If you do live in a snowy place, snow is always going to be a great option for you to utilize water. You could try to collect a little bit of water in like a 5-gallon bucket. You could try to funnel it in to onto your balcony, something like that. Lots of people do that. I saw people growing with hanging baskets on their patios. Hanging baskets? I love hanging baskets. It utilizes the ceiling, which is never utilized, okay? I'm kind of going back and forth here, but hanging baskets are great, especially outdoors. But you can do hanging baskets indoors too. Hanging baskets, utilize that ceiling space, right? Hang some stuff. You can also get stackable water containers. Again, those might be a little heavier, especially for some apartments, but, if you just want to get like a few of them, that can at least ensure that you have some. And of course, always have the water tub, the water bobs and things like that you can always fill with water in case of emergency. So I'll say this, whether you live in a small space or not, look to your community, look to your local farms, look to your neighbors, get to know your neighbors. Just say hi. You don't have to go up to them and say, hello, my name is Morgan. I'm a prepper. Can we be friends? No, just be cool, man. Just say, hey, you know, I'm your neighbor. You don't have to disclose anything about yourself. You don't even have to hang out with them. Your neighbors can be great assets. The more friendly you are, the more people that you get engaged with and get connected with can be your allies instead of your enemies. We don't have to think of everybody as our enemy. We don't have to disclose all information about ourselves. Just be friendly, right? And look to community gardens, look to community farms, these kinds of things. So learn skills. When we lived in an RV, I don't know if anybody is still here from the RV rogue days, but when we lived in an RV, we had to get really creative. I remember posting a video where I was very, very sad that I had to get rid of so much stuff. In hindsight, I probably should have just put it in storage. I was a real dummy. But anyway, I still couldn't keep it with me in the RV, you know what I mean? Like I had a very limited space. But I did find a lot of space. I was able to downsize and prioritize exactly what I needed based on my existing skills, as well as what skills I could learn on the road or potentially utilize on the road, right? You can right now. You can, okay? There's no reason you can't. You can preserve by dehydrating. You can do all these things, even if you live in an apartment. Learn skills and implement. All right, the last tip that I have is going to be your disaster plan. I have a link down below to where you can go check out how to make a disaster plan. I think an apartment, and you know, when we're talking apartment, we're not always talking about urban areas, lots of apartments in rural areas. I've seen them, okay? But you know, when we're talking about apartments, I think an emergency disaster plan is even more essential. I think an emergency disaster plan is essential no matter where you live, but especially if you're in an apartment, you know, let's say there's a fire in your apartment. Do you know where to go? Do you know how to evacuate properly? Do you know what the procedure of the apartment building is? What's your personal fire escape, right? Are you on a high floor? How are you going to get out? Do you have a ladder that you can get down? What type of options do you have for that type of scenario? And then, you know, maybe if it's more of like a flooding situation and you're on the bottom floor, could you get higher or do you have to evacuate? What do you have to do? What are your options for what could happen in your local area, in your region, okay? Okay, I lied. That wasn't the last tip. This is the last tip, is going to be home security. You can still have home security whether you live in an apartment, RV, whatever, okay? When we lived in our RV, we had the solar cameras on the outside of our RV, and it was instrumental to us to have those. And so we had the solar cameras, and then when we had our property in Arizona and wherever we've lived, there's been solar cameras. I'm sorry, solar lights. Everywhere we've gone, we've always had solar lights. Solar motion lights. Those are important for us too. Maybe you wouldn't have that in your apartment complex, but you can still have like these. These are window alarms. These are amazing. There's also these door alarms. These are fantastic. You could put these on your front door. You could put these on your sliding glass door, whatever you want. But the glass breaker alarms and the door alarms are fantastic to have, okay? You could potentially put like a little motion sensor camera on like your back patio if you happen to have that. And then of course, just any personal defense items that you have, you know, make sure that you're following all local defense laws and things like that. But you know, I think it's just as important to be prepared for all of these things no matter where you live. And the same principles apply. Keep stocking up on that food and water, learn skills, gain community, and just continue to stay prepared and the very best that you can be, because that's all we can do. Just do your very best. Don't worry about having the most stuff. Don't worry about, you know, I don't have a year's worth of food. That's okay. Keep rotating. Find your local farmers. Find your grow inside vertically. Again, I have a video coming up about all things growing indoors because I love to grow indoors. All right, thank you all so much for watching. I hope this is helpful. If you live in an apartment, RV, other small space, please put your comments down below about what you do to stay prepared in small spaces. Thank you all so much for watching Conquer Tomorrow by Preparing Today. Talk to you later. Bye.